from the Auto Expo in New Delhi to the Defence Expo in Lucknow. The action continuing at the 11th edition of the Defence Expo with over 1,000 companies participating in an almost week-long event. Today, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in Lucknow at the inauguration and said the aim is to expand defence exports by $5 billion over the next 5 years. The first day saw the Prime Minister as well as his Defence Minister Rajnath Singh try their hand and actually pick up the rifles. An anti-satellite missile display by the DRDO as well as an MOU signature signed by HAL and a lot more that was done at the Defence Expo. Why is the Defence Expo so big? What does it mean for India and its defence forces, as well as the economy? Remember, this is a government that has been talking about Make in India as well as defence. This is also coming ahead of the US President Donald Trump's visit to India. I'm going to go across to Maroof Raza, consultant and strategic affairs expert. Maroof, welcome to the India Development Debate. It's day one of the Defence Expo in Lucknow. You saw the Prime Minister there. There's a packed audience. You saw the Chief of Staff. You saw all the generals there as well. What did you make of, if I could get your initial thoughts first?
Well, you know, India is one of the world's largest importer of weapons platforms. Now, this obviously attracts all the big names in the world to come out and display their products in India because they're looking to enter the Indian market or expand their footprint in the Indian market, whichever way you look at it, because the Indian defense budget, which is at $61 billion plus minus, is a budget which expects to grow because the government has indicated a desire both to import and modernize the armed forces. This is something which every government promises, and at the same time also expand the defense base here. Now, the way the system works is companies first sell their, showcase their products to the armed forces. Whatever gets bought, and it gets bought after a fairly lengthy process, but eventually the deal must include transfer of technology in India and its eventual manufacture in India. Two classic examples which have been in the news recently. One was the Rafale deal, because the French, which have traditionally been a large supplier of weapons platforms to us and perhaps India's longest strategic partnership out in the Western world outside of Russia, they continue to promise that they will manufacture the next set of Rafale fighters in India after the first 36 arrive here, which will begin in the next few months. The second deal which is worth noting is that the Russians have gone in for an arrangement with India to make something close to 500,000 Kalashnikov rifles. Again, a name which everyone's familiar with from people who follow news all over the world. Terrorist groups use it, military men use it. It is perhaps the world's most favored rifle brand. The Indian Army is eventually going to have all its infantry soldiers using made in India Kalashnikov rifles, and this product is going to be manufactured in Uttar Pradesh. And the third thing which we must understand is the reason why this is being pushed in UP, as Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman had last pushed the Defence Expo when she was Raksha Mantri in Chennai, is to create these production corridors which basically link two cities, long highways with all sorts of defense manufacturing outfits on either side of the road, and they are talking about more than 30,000 crores emerging from that kind of an arrangement and millions of jobs. So this is really the sum of what the Defence Expo is all about.
And, today you did see India displaying its military might. We, of course, saw various demonstrations to that effect as well. And I want to now quickly get your word on this, Maroof Raza. You're seeing the Defence Expo for the first time in Uttar Pradesh, incidentally, just ahead of the POTUS arriving in India. The President of the United States will be in India in February. The expectation is that besides a trade deal, there will be a push between as far as a defence deal goes.
Yeah, absolutely. over the last, say, 5 years or more, the United States has become the largest supplier of military platforms to India. This has obviously upset our traditional suppliers like the Russians, but still 60% or more of the inventory of the Indian Armed Forces is of Russian origin. And I'm talking of all the three services, from tanks and artillery systems in the army to aircrafts in the Air Force like the Sukhois and others, and the Navy, which has a number of Russian platforms. But the Americans have steadily been getting into the Indian market. Today, America's defense deals with India stands in excess of $20 billion. So I'm saying that essentially America is already a favored supplier of weapons platforms to India. But President Trump and his administration is obviously looking for more deals with India, because America says that's one way to strengthen the strategic partnership that India has with the United States. And as some people would know, that we've entered into a three-part foundation agreement with America's military and defense establishment, which includes all sorts of arrangements, including giving some kind of R&R facilities to American ships in the Indian Oceans, to even using some American technology in our weapons platform, so that we are on the same wavelength with the Americans, particularly in the Indo-Pacific, where America sees India as one of its pivot partners. But most importantly, I think India needs to get high-end weapon systems from the Americans, like we have been getting from the Russians. No other country has given us a nuclear sub on lease. Some critics say that the Americans are only giving us small weapons platforms and relatively easy to use. But our scientific abilities are very high. Our scientists have produced some of the first-rate weapons platforms that the world is talking about. You may know, and I think you mentioned that, more recently we entered the exclusive club of 6 countries that has an anti-ballistic satellite system, which is basically can knock off satellites in the space. We are also looking to enhance our space facilities, which the military wants to get into in a big way, and our scientists are working on that. Where the Americans will come in here or not, we don't know, but the American ambassador has indicated that America is expecting some more defense deals to be signed, and one way to win over the American administration and have them on your side is to give them defense deals, if I can put it a bit cynically.
And this entire dream that the Narendra Modi government has had and has been pushing since 2014, which is of Make in India. We've heard of strategic partnerships. It's tried with various models. You've seen of new houses, industrial houses, trying to get into the defense space and increased outlay when it comes to the defense budget as well. But it's not taken off.
Yeah, you are right. Actually, one area of Mr. Modi's Make in India initiative, which has been very slow to take off, is really the defense sector. And there are 2 or 3 reasons for that. One is the armed forces tend to buy in a crisis mode. They really, except the Navy, are not following the whole pattern of long-term perspective planning. So they just buy things as and when their stock becomes so rare that we could be facing a military disaster if we don't get that. So therefore, you only buy things, but you don't really make it in India. The second thing is, there are Indian manufacturers who are very, very unhappy that they make products, but our armed forces are very slow to even respond to those products. I think there's a disconnect between the armed forces, the bureaucracy in the Ministry of Defense, the defense public sector units, and private manufacturers. Unless we can get them all on the same platform, there will be more talk about Make in India, but in reality, it won't get implemented, because we've seen this Make in India stuff being bandied about from 2014. We are 6 years down the line, and really Make in India is not happening. And one other problem area is, anybody who gets a big defense deal with India has to put in anything up to 30% of the equivalent of the deal by enhancing the Indian industry. Now, people feel those profit margins for them are too tight. They don't have that kind of money to plow back into India. not just in defense, but in related areas, could be in ports, could be in telecommunication, could be railways. The French seem to be pretty good at it. The American companies are more reluctant to do that, and therefore you're getting all this talk and promises from people, but the reality is money is not coming into the sector, and if money doesn't come into the sector, Make in India will not boom as the way the Raksha Mantri has talked about, that it could lead to a 5 trillion economy and really give us that extra boost to a 5 trillion economy dream, which I think is far-fetched. But even if it does give us a 5 trillion economy eventually, the defense sector is really yet to show that it could lead to that. And I think that's why the Prime Minister and Raksha Mantri are pushing very hard for it.
Okay, so let's see what happens going forward, the Defence Expo. But before I let you go, Maroof Raza, I'm going to end it on a note that I think the viewers also deserve to know. There has been this now tradition of the Defence Minister always shifting the Defence Expo to his or her constituency. Happened in Bengaluru, then it went to Goa when the late Manohar Parrikar was the Defence Minister. We then saw it going to Tamil Nadu when Nirmala Sitharaman was the Defence Minister. Now it's Lucknow when Rajnath Singh is the Defence Minister. And I'm hearing all these stories about how Lucknow is completely unprepared. There are not enough hotels. I, for example, tried to call the Clark's Hotel, completely sold out. I believe some of the going rates have been as absurd as 1,25,000 rupees a room. I believe some very senior industrialists have had to call the Chief Secretary requesting for accommodation. The Defence Ministry has booked out most of the rooms. How are we going to have an expo if those who are supposed to be participating can't even get a hotel room?
You're absolutely spot on, Nayantara. I was in Lucknow yesterday, and believe me, I was astounded to see that I was staying in a hotel room which was costing 10 times their normal rack rate. And foreign manufacturers and big ticket companies don't really mind it, because they compare this with rates in places like, the Expo in Paris and the Farnborough show and other parts of the world, because they all tend to hike up the rates of the hotels there. But really, for Indian companies, it's a problem, a bigger problem of shifting all this to the cities where their political constituencies are. That is the Raksha Mantri's political constituency, is essentially about trying to get investment into states which are their political constituencies. But the military officers who have to finally do the paperwork to make these choices, so that the GSQR and other things are spelt out, so that we buy these products eventually, they find it extremely difficult to get to Lucknow or Chennai yesterday or Goa before that, find a hotel room, actually make good use of the Def Expo. In my mind, the only city that is really capable of hosting a proper Def Expo with the military, the end user, getting to the location, making their choices and not getting hampered logistically, is Delhi and the NCR.
Okay, so let's see if Maroof's home city, the Delhi NCR, ever gets to host the Def Expo. But Lucknow, from the face of it, prima facie, first day, looking unprepared, just not enough hotel rooms, was not able to create the supporting infrastructure. Maybe it's also the time we see the government of India not book all the rooms when it's having a big global event like the Defence Expo. Maroof Raza, always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for joining us here on the India Development Debate.